Hello, everyone. It is Cindy Walter with a special guest, Katie Walter, today. How are you, Katie?
Your first guest.
My first guest, episode 4, and I'm going to do something funny right now. Give me just a second. Talk to the camera.
Oh, how cute.
Katie made me this. Isn't it adorable? She crocheted it. You did a bunch of hats. You went through a hat, what's the word
I
I want?
did. A bucket hat. I did a lot of bucket hats.
Bucket hats. And then you did grandma square hats that were adorable too.
Hmm.
And even sold them in a yoga studio.
I did, yeah.
So I wore an outfit that would match today. Aren't you impressed?
And I made that one for my mom, and I've never seen her step out in it once.
Yeah, I'm not much of a hat wearer, so I haven't worn it much, but I love handmade thoughtful gifts. I would never part with it, and I'm gonna try to wear it more, Katie, I promise.
It looks like you're scared to really pull it on and mess up your hair.
Is it supposed to go down further?
Yeah, that looks good. That's
Okay.
perfect.
So this is it, bucket hat. Hopefully I have it on right. Did you use scrappy yarn for that?
It wasn't so much scrap yarn. I just had a bunch of different colors and I wanted to do stripes. And I liked that combination. So what that one actually wasn't scrappy, but it would be a great scrappy pattern.
Okay. So of my 4 kids, my big audience, Katie's number 2, first daughter of 3 daughters. And I tried teaching Katie how to knit. How old are you? Do you remember? I mean, you never forget a
Probably
thing.
like 7 or 8.
7 or 8. And we tried for a bit and you got frustrated.
You
And
tried crochet first.
okay.
I remember some thrown crochet hooks.
Hopefully not by me.
Knitting after, because I think you thought crochet would be easier for me to pick up because it's just the one
Chain.
hook.
Hmm.
And then you tried knitting and I actually took to that much easier.
Yeah. And then really didn't do much with it until when? Share your fiber story with everyone.
Well, yeah, I would say you taught me like 7 or 8 to knit. And I remember she would cast on for me, and then I knew the basic knit stitch, and I would knit the length of a scarf, and then mom would cast off for me. And there were a couple times I expressed interest in learning to cast on and cast off. And she said she didn't have the patience to teach me either of those things at the time. So that's all I ever knew was the meat of a scarf. Mom would help me on the two ends. And I feel like every Christmas for probably 5 or 6 years, we would knit together. You would do your sweaters and I would do my scarves. And then we both fell off of knitting, I would say,
Mhm.
probably around the same time. Like we got to be teenagers, it was no longer cool. You were too busy to knit. And then when I was in college, I had a back injury that took me out of what was a huge part of my life, which was athletics. And I was just at TJ Maxx one day and there was a knitting kit. And I was like, oh, you know what? That'd be cool to pick back up. Like I knew how to knit once upon a time. It was a blanket, I remember. And so I bought that and knit that up and haven't really stopped since.
And now we're addicted. And every morning when I get up, Katie's in England, and it'll be 5 o'clock in the morning for me on the East Coast in Ohio. And she's like the only person I can call. So I FaceTime her every morning, and then we sit and we knit together. I'm
We
working on
do.
socks right now. What are you working on?
I'm working on a few things. I'm usually anti multiple whips, but I had the yarn to start a few things, and they all start top down on the back panel. So I figured I could manage a couple at once because they're kind of all being constructed in the same way. So I've got this going. This is going to be the Olga jacket by Petite Knit. I had this white yarn on hand from old baby projects, and then the blue is new. So really excited about this. I think it's going to actually knit up pretty quick. And then I'm big on getting secondhand yarns. And here in the UK, we call them charity shops. Back home, it would be a thrift shop. But there's always really nice wools if you look hard enough. So this is a 100% wool that's actually made in America that I'm doing a baby tee. So a very fitted, this is a fine yarn. So that's going to be a baby tee. That's by Wool and Beyond, I think is the designer. And then I've got one more petite knit going, and this is going to be a vest. that buttons down the front. This is also the back panel.
Yeah,
Those are
Katie
my
never
whip.
has more than one whip, so this is pretty impressive. I finished my vanilla sweater. It's blocking right now, so I'll show you that on the next podcast. I'll wear it. But I started my gorgeous petite knit. Uh, oh my gosh, what is the name of
No
this one? No
frills.
frills. The no frills. And it is. I wish you could see how soft this fabric is. It is just so delightful to work with. I can't. I don't want to put it down.
And I would just like to put it on the record. I've been telling my mom for a year that she needed to look at petite knit because I started doing her patterns about a year ago and they were just so easy to follow, but so good at the end. And my mom is a woman of habit, and so she wasn't in the habit of trying petite knit. So she put me off for a year and now she's obsessed.
And then I have another whip bag ready to go with my champagne cardigan by Petite Knit. And I also have a tank that I totally made the wrong size on and had to frog the whole thing. And I need to make that over again. It's the twisted rib, I think it is. I think that's the name of it. But anyway, it's so fun to have a hobby you can share with your kids. So our goal, our secret goal is to get our other girls doing this with us eventually too. And I have some hope with Jenna over Thanksgiving weekend. She's coming home, and what I bought her was you can, if she watches this is going to ruin it, but these are striped socks. Like they make,
Have you not learned your lesson that you shouldn't start people on socks?
I have, but apparently these are really nice because they're self-striping. So I don't know if I'll start her off with this. I thought maybe I could do the cabled ear covering first because that's not very difficult. And if she gets into it and loves it, this could be project two.
Well, maybe she does a scarf first.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll figure that out. Yeah, I'm trying to get all these new people knitting
You're
and
putting
that
the
was
cart
not my
before the
choice.
horse.
My friend Mona, she learned how to knit once when she was 6 and never touched it again. And I just assumed she knew what she was doing. And I had her knitting a scarf and she completed it on her own, bound off on her own. So then she came to me wanting to make socks. So I gave her my pattern that I was using, which well, I want to say that was a petite knit sock pattern too. But no, I don't know that it is. It's Sunday sock, not petite
Yeah,
knit.
yeah,
Is
that
that
is.
it is?
Yep.
Okay. Okay.
Mhm.
And that's a little hard to go from garter stitch to socks. So there was definitely frustration there. I did my best to work with her and accommodate her and get her going. And then I sent her to my Jessica, my local yarn store, who was our little savior, got her going. And now she's on finishing her second pair. And from the first sock to the fourth, oh my gosh, so much improvement. So she's hooked. She's all in. And then Val next door got her going and they're enjoying knit night and stuff too. So it's great. All right. So one of the main reasons I wanted Katie on here today is because not only is she an unbelievable knitter, she has made some of the cutest baby gifts. Um, just a sweater for our nephew's baby that had a tractor on it, and just the cutest. Oh, the one with the daisies. Oh, that's the next one. That is so cute. That's for
Yeah.
a baby that's not with us yet. Our niece is having a baby, so that's pretty exciting. So she's done so much with that, but she's also a fabulous yoga teacher, and she actually was part of getting me certified. And our her sister Jenna, back when COVID hit, it was online yoga certification that I did, and Katie was one of the teachers that got us certified. So we spent 200 hours together on that. It was amazing. So I was telling Katie when I got back into knitting and completely obsessed and doing it every single day, my hands started getting sore. So I thought maybe if you wouldn't mind, Katie, just sharing a couple exercises. What can people do when they start expressing some pain in their fingers?
Yeah, I think it's great to do a little bit of warm up before you start knitting, especially if it's something you like to kind of hop to first thing in the morning because your joints are stiff, they haven't been moving, and then if you go into a really repetitive movement, and if you're someone who has like a tighter hold on the needles, that can just really put some pressure on the joints. So it's nice to warm up if possible, and then if you've been at it for a while, it's nice to do a little stretch after. But outside of both of those things, I really would recommend if you're doing something with your hands often, actually doing yoga, like going to a class, is the best thing you can do. Because if you're thinking about a part of your body that you want to strengthen, and in this case, we'd want to have strong wrists and strong fingers. Um, Often you think of weightlifting as like the way to strengthen. And we're not going to lift weights for our wrists and our fingers, but when you're doing yoga and you're bearing weight in your hands and fingers, that's like lifting weights, but you're using your body weight. So if you don't do yoga, you're probably not actually weight bearing in your hands all that often, if ever. A lot of people that do yoga, it's the only time when they're in downward dog, when they're in a tabletop, that's kind of the only time that they're ever weight bearing, which means that's a really important time for strengthening the wrists and the fingers using your weight. So I really would recommend actually going to yoga because you can stretch out this part of the body, but that strengthening is really, I think, the best for longevity. You know, we want to knit forever because we love it so much. So I think that's the best thing. But as far as those other two things go, the warm up and then the release after, really intuitive for the warm up. So I would recommend going slowly, taking some circles at the wrist in both directions. And if you find that your wrist is ever really cracky, I would really slow down the movement on that wrist and maybe even stabilize your forearm because your forearm has two bones that rotate as well. So sometimes we can think that we're really moving our wrist, but actually, if you really pay attention to these two bones, it's the bones twisting, and then we're kind of tricking ourselves into thinking it's the wrist. So if you're having any pain, just to really understand what's happening there, I would stabilize the forearm and then try to take some circles. And you might need to modify how far you move it, but try to take some circles to see if you can get that clicking to stop. And if not, try to figure out where in that circle the clicking happens. You'll probably find it's like every time you hit that one point, it's a click. And then that can give you information on where there's some compression happening in the joint that you could then take forward into some stretching. So I would, yeah, do some wrist circles. It's also nice to weave your fingers together and use kind of that top hand to manipulate and roll out the bottom. And then fingers as well. We have multiple joints in every single finger. So something just like spreading them out really wide, clenching them up, articulating the hands. So going one finger at a time to open and then one to curl back in. A really good way to train the fingers as well. So these are all good things to do before knitting. And then after, keeping in mind kind of where you might find that clicking, we'd want to give some love back to the wrists to stretch them out. So a really good one is palm forward, place your opposite hand on the fingers and give a little pull. And this is going to stretch out the inner
I feel it right
part
here.
of your wrist. Yeah, and you might even feel it all the way up the forearm and into the elbow. So that's a really good one. And you've got a lot of meaty muscles in the base of the palm coming up into the forearm. So this should feel just like a pretty good release and a stretch. The opposite way, if you just turn your hand the other way and you pull the fingers in, this might get a little bit more sensitive for stretching the top of the wrist. So really never push into pain. If it's a sharp pain, then you're not going to be getting anything from that stretch. So just explore a little bit here and aim to stretch right there. And then I would also explore maybe, again, some big open palms. And I find it's easier to kind of place the hand maybe on a wall or on the ground and really explore that pressing down. This is kind of yoga-esque, trying to activate each fingertip, almost as if you're like a tree frog and you can suction those tips onto the ground. Really good way to just actively lengthen through the fingers and put some strength back into those joints. So pretty basic, but again, my big thing would really try to weight bear in your hands because that's the equivalent of lifting muscle or lifting weights for your knitting muscles. And I think that's really the most important thing.
So, one more thing on yoga before I switch topics. For people that maybe don't have a close yoga studio, do you have any recommendations on doing it from home, like finding a yoga mat? Is there any online ways that people can do some of this? Because actually, one of the knit stores that I follow, the Woolly Thistle, that Susan Wheeler gave me my gift card from that I just finished my vanilla sweater. And they have a yoga teacher that gets on their podcast and does yoga for knitters. So there's
Yeah.
resources. So what would you recommend for someone that maybe can't get to a studio?
There's so much. I mean, any specific kind of yoga you wanted to do, you will find it online available. I as well have gone online and done yoga for knitters through some different knit shops. I've done that a couple times as well. So Google it, you'll find what you want. But I would recommend yoga with Adrienne on YouTube. It's just so easy. There's absolutely no barrier to doing that. She's got a million videos on YouTube. They're free to watch. If you have any injuries in your body, she's going to have a video that works for you. So, if you have low back pain, she's going to have a video that makes the practice accessible to you. So there's a million broader options if you search the internet, but I think that's a great place to start.
Okay, I'll get the link from you and post it in the comments. But other than that, I know that a lot of people that have issues, it's because they hold their needles too tight. So really work on loosening that up. And I try to look at this as it's relaxing. I don't hold it tight. I just really relax with it. Where my soreness comes is because of the repetition. I'm doing it for hours at a time sometimes. And then that's when my pain will come. So I actually taught myself how to continental knit once I heard a lot of people on other podcasts saying the hand soreness is much less intense if you continental knit. So I started doing that and I don't know how to continental purl yet. I was telling Katie I don't know how to rib yet, but when I just have to knit now around the sock or when I'm doing sweaters, I can go pretty quickly and it's pretty pain free. Now I worked so hard on that sweater, my thumb finally started hurting last night finishing up that sweater, but that's because I was doing it for so many hours. So just be mindful of that. If you feel any pain coming on, might be time to take a little break, go get a cup of tea, go get a cup of coffee, do some yoga stretches. But yoga, I mean, it's great for every reason. And we're talking about health and your overall health and well-being. And I always say that knitting brings my stress down significantly. So does yoga. And I think that's something we both agree on. It's fun to have so many things in common with you. But yoga and knitting are two of our favorites that we have in common together. And I drug you to
Wow.
your that first yoga class too,
You did.
kind of kicking and screaming. And now look
And
at
I think a lot of people could probably resonate with that feeling of being uninterested in yoga or intimidated by it, as I was. But if you're really into knitting, it's a completely different form of meditation, yoga and knitting, but they are both so meditative. So I think if people give yoga a chance, they'll find that the state of mind it puts you in is actually the same as like working on a project that you're really, really jazzed about. And I lived in Tampa, Florida previously to here, and we actually started a knit circle at my yoga studio. And they were the two just made sense together. We do yoga and then we knit right after, or people would come to knit circle and then do yoga after, and they're just both so meditative.
yeah. And we keep talking about doing a yoga knitting retreat. We need to get it on the calendar. So
Yeah.
where would you guys like to go? You want to go to England to see my daughter and we'll do a retreat over there or get her back to the States?
Might have to do it here. I know some places we could shear a sheep now.
Yes. Oh my gosh. How fun is that? How fun is that? And you still have kind of some dreams and hopes for maybe more yarn in your future, right? You still thinking
Yeah,
about having a store
if
one
you're if
day?
you're if you're alluding to having a shop, I mean, who doesn't dream of that? Having my own warehouse of yarn. But yeah, would love that.
Someday. Someday. I
Mhm.
brought my stash from the basement up into my office now, and it was on one shelf. Now it's kind of getting onto two shelves in a drawer. So it's quite addicting, but it's a good addiction. It's a good habit. It's a healthy habit. But
Yeah.
we want to take care of our hands too. So any other suggestions or anything you want to share? Any fun knitting story?
Any fun knitting story?
Yeah.
Well, I can share that I was just home with family over the summer, and mom and I went to a knit shop in Traverse City, Michigan. Have you shouted them out yet?
No,
They were amazing, and I'm forgetting the name.
I might have it. I
Um,
do. Lost art. Lost art.
And you know what? No, this is a funny story. I think my mom and I had to do an airport drop off at what was that, 6 a.m.?
Yes.
And we were an hour from the airport in Traverse City. So we woke up at 5. Mom didn't want to drive alone. My dad didn't want her driving alone. So I was just in the passenger seat. We were dropping off my sister and her boyfriend at the airport. So we dropped them off at 6 a.m. There's not even a cafe open in Traverse City for us to go to for another 30 minutes. So we drive and park near the first cafe that will open. And mom is begging to take a nap in the car. And I say, no, we're going to go for a walk on the beautiful water. So we went on a walk. Eventually, we get to go to the cafe. We kill some
Yeah,
time. I
you
think
forgot about the rainbow.
there was a gorgeous rainbow, beautiful sunrise. So there were no regrets about the walk, I think, at the end of that. And then we killed some time at the cafe. I think we both had knitting with us.
Yeah.
I might have been doing some schoolwork. And eventually, oh no, we went to yoga then.
Yoga.
That was the next step.
Yoga
We
on the
went to
bay.
yoga, looking out over beautiful, beautiful, yeah, water again. And then finally, the first knit shop in Traverse City opens at 10 o'clock in the morning. So that was our next stop. We went to this yarn store that we'd never been to, despite going to Northern Michigan most years of my life. And it was awesome. They had the best selection and they had a whole room of sale yarn that mom and I immediately went into. Yeah, mom got us these cute little tape measures, and she got me 4 skeins of this beautiful yarn. This is one of them wound up. She got me 4, and it took about 2 of those to do the project that I had in mind, which I have here to show you. I have all the things ready.
Ah,
This is the Lulu Slipover, I think it's called, by Petite Knit as well. So I finished that and I love it. And I still had 2 entire balls of this wool left. And I was nervous to try anything too ambitious because I'm like, well, I only have the 2 left. So I picked out another vest, figuring that was a safe option. So this is the Florentina vest, and the little ties are kind of hidden, but this ties in a bow in the front, and this is getting gifted to a friend. So I made this one, another entire vest.
so adorable.
So cute. And I still have this much of the yarn left, which I think would be enough to make an entire another one of the Florentina, but I don't think I want to do the exact same thing, so I'm trying to decide
Mm.
what to
You
do with
need to
these.
look at that last cute little cropped tank I sent you. If that yarn would work for that.
That's a chunky
Oh,
yarn. So I won't have enough of this. I could probably do another small top, but I've been playing with the idea of doing a hat with like matching fingerless gloves. I think I would have enough of this, so
so cute. So
TBD.
we will go to that store again. That was absolutely amazing. And then we found Farm to Needle in Beulah, and she
Mm.
just recently moved to a bigger spot and has the most beautiful yarn. The one in Traverse City is larger, but the one in Beulah is beautiful as well. And that's who I am actually taking my very first knitting class. In all these years, I'm self-taught. I am taking a class to do this together with a group, and it was really great because I'm learning just a couple of new ways to do things, and this is just so soft. It's all I want to do, Katie. Ah, my saying now is too many projects, not enough time. Well, I've loved having you on my fourth podcast.
Also, my mom tried to keep this podcast a secret from me. Let that be known as well.
Well, I was a little scared to do this because there's so many amazing professional knitting podcasts out there, and I am just your typical, knitter, self-taught, that loves to do it, but I don't know all the terms. I'm not an expert at all, but I love the passion of it, and really, I love the idea because I am a health coach of the Healthy Knitter, and that was actually Dad's idea. May change the name someday, but I kind of like it. It's kind of sticking.
Yeah. Well, I'm
So
honored to be your first guest.
my first guest and probably my all-time favorite.
Until Jenna gets into knitting, then you were gonna have to take that back.
We've got some time, I think. Well, I love you, and I can't wait to knit with you in person in England in just a couple weeks.
We're gonna have so much fun.
So much fun. And I'm going to start off my trip in Iceland, so maybe I'll bring you some Icelandic wool.
Yep, so you've got some knitting in Iceland to look forward to. And then once she arrives to the UK, you can find her knitting in some beautiful spots in New York, of course. She'll be in all my favorite cafes. And then we'll have some coastal knitting in Whitby, looking out over the ocean. And then we will have a weekend in a spa town called Harrogate. So between spa treatments, we'll be doing a little more knitting, I'm sure.
I hope I can bring a big enough suitcase for all my knitting projects. And the one yarn I have never gotten my hands on is knitting for Olive.
Oh, well, I don't know if you're going to get your hands on any here, but
No,
you might
are
just
they
have to
in
order that
Denmark?
online. Huh?
Are they in Denmark?
Copenhagen.
I figured you might have some there. No, easier than here.
I mean, I have some in my personal stash.
Oh, but it's not easy to find.
I don't know if I'm forking that over to you, though. I think there might be some places that carry it in London, but not up here.
Oh, and we're not going to London this time.
We're not.
All right. Well, we'll get going on our retreat plans. We'll keep you posted on that, everyone. And thank you so much, Katie. Love you.
Anytime.
All right. Stay on. I'm just going to stop recording. Bye, everybody.